informative, instructive, insightful, interactive, involved. From JS Statia, this is Shedding Light. It's your invitation to a positive exchange of ideas on the developments in government that matter to you. And now, live from our offices in Princess, here are our hosts, Jessica Jack and Tina Lopes.
Hello everyone, my name is Johnson John Rose. I'm in for Jessica Jack, who is enjoying a well-earned break and getting set for a pretty tough week next week when we do the Dutch Caribbean Agriculture Conference. Well, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us on radio and online. As always, we'll open up the lines a little bit later. Questions, comments, you can call us and send us a WhatsApp message at 599-318-4815. That's 599-318-4815. You can send a voice note or WhatsApp message. That'd be lovely. Share your thoughts on our Facebook page, Statia Government. Well, you might have heard by now that Statia is a candidate to become a child-friendly city. We're the first island and one of only 3 Dutch municipalities to make it this far in this initiative by the UN Child Rights Agency, UNICEF. What being a candidate means is in the coming years, and Statia is working towards that, and it will mean that children and young people will be able to evaluate how our local policies really serve the rights of children and the young people. There are a number of steps that must be taken, and if we achieve these goals and concrete results, then Statia will receive the official recognition as a child-friendly city and join a network of thousands of municipalities in 40 countries doing this. Some work has already been done to determine where we are in the process. We'll share the results a little bit later. But first, Statians will go to the polls on the 6th of June. That's 6th of June. That's a little over 2 weeks from today to help elect the 31 members of the European Parliament. But what's this election about? And why should Statians worry to vote? Well, Chandra Smith and Shamira Ras will join us to talk about this and what you should do in case you have to apply for a new passport or just have your passport renewed. We'll talk about all of that. Well, thank you, ladies, for joining us. And they're both from the Census Office, Lishandra and Shamira from the Census Office.
Thank you for
first of all, yes, we're happy that you can join us. The election's really taking place very, very soon from now. What's the election about?
My colleague, Ms. Ras, would answer that.
Thank you for having us this morning on your program. It's an election that happens every 5 years in the European Union. It consists of ministers from those countries where they make decisions in making new laws, and the laws are pertaining to poverty, climate change, employment, security, healthcare.
So a wide range of stuff that impact members of the European Union, countries of the European Union. And of course, Statia
is
being part of the Netherlands.
Correct.
It will impact on Statia as well, which was the question, why is it important for Statians to vote in an election like this?
Correct.
So why is it? Why should Statians go to vote, Lishandra?
Stations contributes to
the European
Union.
Correct.
Yeah.
And they should vote because they would help to contribute in the decision making of these laws. And Shamina, is there anything else you can add?
It's also pertaining to employment, like I just mentioned before. We have a lot of the youngsters and we have other individuals that's coming to our island that needs work. Children are finishing school, they also need work. And also, we might not be aware of poverty that's around us, but there is poverty. So all those elements that I mentioned also affects our citizens here on the island as well.
So in essence, and we talked about every law that the members of the European Parliament pass impact us, don't they? So,
correct, it does.
So I take it that when you vote as a station, you're helping to choose the individual who might want to pass laws that you think are more beneficial to us in Statia, wouldn't you? So I'm looking at that. So who is eligible to vote? from Statia?
Anyone that is of the age of 18 and older is a Dutch citizen as well, and also who is not
Disqualified
Yes.
from voting.
Who is not disqualified?
Yes.
From voting.
Yeah, from.
And
one
only a
way.
court judgment can disqualify you from such.
Okay, so it's got to go to court. If you're already registered to vote, something has to happen, and a court has to say no, you can't. In a sense, that's what.
in a
it's
sense
gotta
like
be a
that.
reason.
Let me give you an example. The list has to be closed. In order for us to close the list, in order for us to see how much eligible voters we have in order to vote. It's the timing for that, because when we close the list, then you give a period of timing for the printing to start. And if individuals comes after that list has been closed, then of course, they're not on that list to participate in the election. So if they want to execute their rights, they can go to court and they can ask, and only they can give the permission, yes, they are allowed or not, because of the fact they were not registered before the list was closed.
Last year, we had elections here. We had local elections, we had chamber elections, and so on. So I take it that anybody who was eligible to vote in last year's elections, for example, can also vote in this election. No, it's different?
No, it's different,
Oh,
because
okay.
last elections, those individuals that had a residence permit for 5 years and more was also eligible to vote as well, because we were voting for the country, our country station. But now this is for the European Union. That is why it is only 4 Dutch citizens are allowed from the age of 18 to be able to vote in
That's
this
good to know.
election.
That's very good to know. So people who do not have Dutch citizenship, even if you have a 5-year residency,
They're not allowed.
even if you were able to vote in the
Unfortunately.
local elections last year, you must have Dutch
nationality.
nationality
Yes, sir.
for you to be able to vote. So it would be a smaller group of people, I take it, than the elections in March last year.
Correct.
Yeah. Have we had anyone added to the list since the election last year? People who didn't vote last year, didn't qualify to vote last year, but who can qualify this year?
We have a lot of persons that's coming to register to the island. And now that seeing, I don't know if I'm answering your question correctly.
You are.
But the Dutch citizens that comes in,
Yes.
we make sure that they were in before the list was closed. So we have a total of 1918 eligible voters, Dutch eligible voters to vote, which is almost a little bit half than our population that is registered on the island, if I'm saying it correctly.
You're absolutely
So
spot on.
that, so that is why last year's election was way more, because you had a combination of both.
Right.
Those permits that was more than 5 years and individuals that's Dutch national.
You couldn't be clearer.
I hope.
Couldn't be clearer. So 1,918
Correct.
people are eligible to vote in the elections on the 6th of June.
Correct.
Okay, lovely. Now, and you said you tried to get them on before you close the list, which means that if you are not yet registered, it's a bit late now.
Correct. And the only way that you can get the exemption to participate, if it's been granted, is only by court, as my colleague had mentioned before.
Okay, so that means the registration for the election closed some time ago, I think sometime in April.
Correct.
April
Yes.
23rd.
23rd of April. So
Yes.
after that's the cutoff point. Because I take it you have work to do after that, the cutoff point to do. What is some of the stuff that you have to do? How busy is it for you when the cutoff point has come? Now you've got to do other things like getting people's voters
Yes,
cards to
you
them
see,
and stuff
when,
like
when
that.
when we already close the list, this goes up, the printing starts, and once it reach, when the voting cards reach, we have to count and then distribute this to the person that is we assign to deliver these voting cards, and they have to be at the residence of these persons no later than the 23rd of this month. So that's Thursday.
Correct.
Tomorrow. To
That
be
is
exact.
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
You said Thursday as if it's somewhere in the
tomorrow.
distance. It is
It's
tomorrow.
tomorrow. So each eligible voter should have the card no later than tomorrow.
And if they don't, by something happens and they don't.
And if they don't, they can always come into the census office. We're open from Monday to Friday, of course. Monday, Tuesday, and Thursdays we are open from 7:30 to 2:30. We're not closed for lunch. And on Wednesdays and Fridays we're open from 7:30 to 12. They always walk with a valid identification to identify themselves, and we can have one.
So a
Printed.
lot,
We printed.
a lot happens in the background that
Yes.
people are not aware of
Yes.
when you're preparing for these
Correct.
things, and how busy you can be, and that people are not aware of. Okay, so on the 6th of June, where can people vote?
This time we only have one voting bureau. And that would
Location?
be at the location, and that would be at the Ernest Mike Youth from Putin Center, also known as
Very
the
popularly
Carnival.
called the Lions Den.
The Lions Den. Yes, the Lions Den. And voting bureaus open from 7:30 a.m. until 9 p.m. So if you're in the line at 8:59, you're still eligible to vote.
Yeah.
But if you come in after 9, then you know you can cast your vote again.
Okay, that's always the dilemma. If you get there at 8:59 and 58 seconds, you can vote.
Of course.
Even if you still have to
before
wait.
9.
Yes.
If you get there at 9:01,
9:01, forget it. Sorry.
Exactly.
So,
Lines are already
but that's a
closed.
long day from
Very
7:30 in the
long.
morning. So
Very
very ready
long.
is no excuse. If you really want to vote,
Wanted to- exactly.
not to be able to get there, you've got a full day. Okay. So what documents do people need to take along with them when they go to vote?
What you take along with you when you're voting is your valid identification, your ID card or a valid passport,
Or a driver's license.
and your voting card.
You must have your ID.
You must have your ID.
So it could be your passport or
Or
your
your
ID card.
identity, exactly.
And your stuff. And voting by proxy. If I don't want to go to the polling station, but I want my vote to count.
There's two types of proxy. Show me to correct me if I'm wrong. There's a written proxy and the proxy that you can assign someone to vote for you on the back of your card.
Correct.
Correct? The difference is with the written proxy, once you give off your vote,
That's it.
you cannot have it back.
Can't take it back.
So the person you are assigned to vote for you must exercise that vote for you. You cannot say, oh, I did give Mr. Johnson my
I noticed you sort of Mr. That's okay.
Mr.
I did give Johnson.
Johnson the permission to vote for me, and now I don't want him to vote for me anymore. It's a little too late.
Okay, so let's walk through the process for this one, the written proxy first and foremost. To do that, what must I do?
You come, if you're not here or you didn't receive your voting card as yet, you can come into the census office, put you and the individual that you would like to carry out this exercise for you, give off the identification, of course, and it's a form that we filled in. It states that you am given my rights to whomever to exercise
To Johnson.
to vote for me, and we
Then you need to sign.
Yes, you sign. We prepare this
We both have to sign in
Yes.
this case.
and we census office prepare this documentation that this person would be voting on.
So
Their
as
behalf.
the person who will be voting on your behalf, when I come to the census office, do I have to bring anything else myself? Do I have to bring my ID as well?
Yes.
So
Both IDs.
So we both have to bring our
Exactly.
IDs. And then
That's only when you're coming to apply for it. So
Yeah.
when you're giving the lady at the counter that information, you have to verify who you are, both the persons. After signing, then you are making it concrete that you're giving your rights over to this person to do your voting for you. Then afterwards, we take that because that is also a backup for us. Because sometimes we will say, I didn't give this person this authorization to vote on my behalf. Things can happen. You understand? So that is also our proof for our office as well that it is in that.
On this date, you came
Yes.
in with
time, yeah.
Yes.
Correct. And then afterwards, we will tell the person when we finish, print the card, the duplicate, or whatever. Then we will tell them, you can come back and collect it. And then the person who gave it to them does not need to be
Does not need to return.
and
Okay.
that person wouldn't have the rights to vote
no more.
again. because they give it off.
They gave it away. Now, so I take it then in this case, before you decide that I can vote on your behalf, you gotta trust me
Of course.
Of course.
to be able to
Exercise
do
that for you.
exactly, not just
What-
exercise,
but vote for the
but
person
the
that you
person
think-
I
You,
wish.
you wish to vote for, correct?
Correct.
But I could change my mind
Correct
and
too
vote for
as well.
somebody else.
That is
Correct.
Yes.
So it's a gamble.
So it's a gamble.
true. Yeah.
So, so in this case, you really shouldn't you, do that if you really caught.
Exactly. For example, if you're not going to be here on the day of voting, or you didn't receive your card as yet. Because if the card was already brought home to them, they could have signed that.
Yeah. Good. So that is the written proxy.
But you have to be very careful because in the past we have individuals, the person that's given the permission has a part on the card that he needs to sign. And sometimes the person who they give the authorization to signs that part which contradicts the card holder
Right, exactly,
signature.
yeah.
And then that also can come a little conflict as well. So that is why we always tell them, read the card properly, that you understand it. If you do not understand it, please feel free to come to the office and we can assist them to make sure it has been done properly.
And that's exactly what he's asking about now, the other proxy.
Right. So people should receive their voting cards by tomorrow.
By tomorrow.
And so the process of voting by proxy, if I want someone to vote on my behalf, this written thing, can begin when? Immediately? By Friday? When do people come
Now
to the
there's
census
two-
office?
There's for the written proxy, the cutoff period is the 5th of June, no later than
That's the day
12.
before election.
That's the day before, no later than 12 noon, right?
Correct.
And the proxy that you give away on your card, you can do that at any time,
At time.
Yeah.
Even on election day.
even on election day.
10 minutes before you vote.
Oh yes,
Even 5 minutes, 5 seconds before you go into the door.
yeah,
Because it's literally to the back of the card.
Okay.
yeah.
So, but again, I think the important thing is going to be someone whom you trust.
Someone who you
Correct. That's
trust.
the most important
Okay,
thing.
so voting by proxy is done. So the election is on the 6th of June. It's for the European Parliament. 1,918 people are
Eligible to vote.
eligible to vote in that election.
Correct.
One voting center, that's the Lions
And
Den.
that,
Yes.
7:30 to 9 p.m.
9 p.m.
People should go to vote and then it's an election.
Just
for-
remind them to walk with their valid identification and their voting card.
You just did it.
Thank you.
If I may add, it's for a good cause. We need help with employment. We need help with poverty. There's a lot of individuals are getting a salary that they cannot really live off of, and the assistance from the European is also well appreciated and needed.
So the important thing is, as we said, you find the people who will most likely be sympathetic to
Helping
our
our
causes
situation,
and
yes.
the situation
Not only here on station, but within the European Union.
within the entire European Union.
Correct.
31 members of the European Parliament, and it's a 5-year election. so every
Elections,
5
correct,
years.
every 5 years.
Thank you. Well, we've got to switch gears a little bit, and we just wanted to touch slightly on the whole issue of passports and if you want to renew your passport or to apply for one as well, as an adult and for a child. Go.
Yes. To begin with, I would like to inform the general public, if you have a Dutch passport expiring anywhere between now and the ending of December, please come in and have your passport renewed. You can renew your passport up to 6 months before expiration date. Don't wait until the day before or the exact same day.
Or wait until the day just before you're ready to travel.
You're ready to travel, exactly.
Or have an emergency.
Yes, and we're now, for adults, it's easy. You have your Dutch nationality, you come in with your Dutch passport, expired or not, hope not expired. $107.09. You walk with your passport pictures. You can get this done at Mr. Paris. And you come on into the census office and you apply for your new passport. However, for kids, we need the parents' permission. If the parents is married, both parents need to be present. And if the child is in legal custody, the guardians need to come in with this child. And the prices per child is from 0 to 17 is $94.16 to be exact. And they can come in and apply for their passport. Everything goes well, between 2 to 3 weeks you'll have your passport.
If my passport expires 6 months from the date I have applied, what happens to the original passport that I have? Do I hand this over to you, or do I keep it on
what we do
until
is,
I get a new one?
what we do at the counter is we only make a copy of the passport that you have, so we know you have an existing Dutch passport. And when we've made that copy, we give you back the passport so long it's still valid. Even if it's expired, we give it back to you. We just have to make it invalid, hand it back to you, and you get your passport when it arrives. Even if it's not expired as yet, we still give it back to you. We never punch it until you receive that new one.
Okay. So at least if I need to
So
rush
if
in an
you need-
emergency
exactly.
or something, I can still travel.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the important thing to note here is don't wait until
Don't
the
wait.
day before, a
Don't
week
wait.
before, a month before. You
Yes.
can apply a full 6
Yes.
months
Exactly.
before the actual
Expiration date.
for your passport. Or if you're running out of pages,
Even
Even
yes.
to that, because
Even to that.
what we have also newly started as well, we started giving off letters to citizens of a Dutch passport. That passport is expiring very soon. So we start like for 3 months, we start giving out letters to remind them, hey, your passport is expiring on this date, so you are allowed to come in to apply for a new passport. And also, we also state in that letter what are the requirements that they need to bring along. And also, so when they come at the counter, they're fully prepared with everything, and it's just to do the process of the passport.
is this a service or is this a requirement?
This is an extra service that we're extending to the citizens of the island. Because sometimes, as a person, we're very busy on our everyday ups and downs. So we're trying to extend the courtesy out to them that, hey, you have to come in to make your passport. Do not wait until this passport, because anything can happen. An emergency can arise in a few seconds. And it's always better to have a valid passport, because certain places you go into, you cannot enter with an emergency passport.
Correct. And certain places you go to, the passport
correct.
expires in 6 months
Correct.
or less.
You
They won't
deny
let
you
you
any-
So that is why it is also good to give out that extra information for them to come in and to do the application of the passport.
But that service that you offer by writing to people, obviously there may be a person or two that might slip through the cracks that you didn't notice.
Correct.
I rather suspect that people expect it, so if you don't write that and say, well, why didn't you write me to tell me?
Yeah.
It happens, but so far that we started with it, it has been working pretty good. Pretty good.
The people is really coming in and making their passport. They're really responding to the letter.
Okay,
So it's a positive.
And the good news about it is we don't do appointments for passport making. You can walk in at any time.
at any time.
Anytime, yeah.
Lovely. Well, Lishandra and Shamira, thank you so very much. Just a quick reminder, once again, election on the 6th is for the European Parliament. If you are eligible to vote, you should receive your voting card by tomorrow. If you don't, then you just visit the census office and let them know, so they'll sort it out for you. And if your passport is expiring in anytime within the next 6 months, please just go to the census office, apply for the new one, so you can at least have peace of mind that you'll have a new one before it expires. So thank you once again. We'll be back in a moment and we'll find out how Stacia is progressing on the road to being child-friendly. You'll be surprised by some of the scores. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Shedding Light. Remember to ring us or send up a WhatsApp voice note or message at 599-318-4185. That's 599-4815, really. Or leave us a comment on our Facebook page. And as I said at the top of the program, Statia is on the way to becoming a child-friendly city, but we've got some work to do. UNICEF, the Netherlands, has developed a child-friendly checklist. It's to help us get a clear picture of where we are, what we're doing well, which areas need improvement. Surveys been conducted and the results are in. How is Statia doing? Statia government's pedagogical, one of this pedagogical mixed up advisor, Monica Smith, and UNICEF Netherlands senior child rights specialist, Kim Deschamps. They've got answers for us to all the questions that we've got. Welcome to Shedding Light, ladies. Welcome back. I think we've been on Shedding Light before and talked a little bit about child-friendly cities and a lot that's been happening. So, but let's go back before we get to the current. Quickly, just tell us a little bit again as to what is this Child-Friendly Cities initiative. Explain it, please.
Yes, I thought you were going to address that question to me. No problem, no problem. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having us again. The Child-Friendly Cities Initiative is a worldwide project from UNICEF where municipalities are being challenged to look into the most vulnerable people in the community, and that are our children and the youth. And a lot of municipalities do already a lot of things for the youth. For instance, on sports, education, development areas, but becoming a child-friendly city candidate, because that is what Statia is, it gives us the opportunity to tune in with other municipalities to exchange knowledge. For instance, recently, Monica, at the moment you're very busy with the youth policy, and because Statia is now one of the 3 municipalities in the pilot, there is the possibility to...
Proudly the first island.
Oh, yes, amazing.
You can't let that just...
No, listen, I had written it down, the first Caribbean island, it's amazing, worldwide. So we put Statia on the map.
If it should gloat a little bit, I just want to sneak Statia ahead of the other Dutch municipalities as actually the first of the Dutch municipalities to...
Well, we are in the first pilot of the Dutch municipalities.
Yes.
With Den Haag and Gooise Meren. So it's a big achievement, because with that signal, the government of Statia actually signs out like, we want to emphasize on children's rights, we want to work in that area, and the effect will be when we make Statia a little bit better for the children and the youth, it will affect the whole community.
So you said we're a candidate.
Yes.
And that means we're not yet been designated a child-friendly.
No, not.
And the word city could probably be a little bit confusing for those of us who live on an island.
Yeah.
So
but we are a city, Oranjestad. It's a city.
But Statia is the one
yes,
that is
true.
that's in there.
True.
So,
yeah.
But that's the name of the initiative.
Yes.
So, but
exactly.
Yeah. So right now we're still a candidate, not yet designated.
No.
So what does this mean?
Well, this means that after we've done our situation analysis, we've done a survey with the youth, with different stakeholders that work with youth, internal within government, different policy advisors as well, and in the social domain especially, to see where we're at with the different on the different articles of the children's rights. Now that we're actually at the point where we have the results, and we are sharing the results back to the persons that filled in the survey, and we're also asking their feedback. Okay, so in the next 2 to 3 years or 3 to 5 years, what are the points that you think are pivotal for our government to work on to becoming actually becoming a nominated child-friendly city? So once we have done the situation analysis, we're going to over to an action plan where we will then indicate, okay, these are the actions we're going to take for the coming 5 years. And in between that 5 years, we will also do another check to see where we're at with the goals that we've put, and then that will allow us to become nominated.
Okay, so we have a period of time
Yes,
to
to
do
work
a number
on.
of things,
Yes.
take a number of steps
Yes.
together, one step
Yeah.
at a time.
The first 2 years were actually indicated for signing the MOU. What has been done in September last year, the official launch in November last year. Now, indeed, the checklist, the child-friendly checklist. Where are we? How is Stacia doing at the moment? And the action plan is also connected to a communication plan. And they said, okay, in the pilot, they gave us 2 years for the action plan and then start implementing. We are just in the first year. We started September. So we're now already at the point that we are going to write this summer the action plan.
Yes.
And then start implementing, hopefully, well, I think perhaps the end of the year, the 2025. But it gives us the insights, and also that gives your director, Carol Jack Roseberg, the overview, like, hey, if this is what we want to do, then we need to discuss it within government about finance, what is needed for the specific project. Do we all embrace what we want to do? And then government can say, okay, this is a good plan, we go forward.
The initial announcement was made in sometime November last year, wasn't it?
Yes.
In the Netherlands.
Yeah.
The then government commissioner, now governor, island governor, leader Francis, was there.
Yes.
So were you.
So was
It
I,
must have
yes.
been a lovely, lovely
It
feeling.
was. Again, I'm gloating. For the
Yes.
for the first island in
Yes.
the world to become a child-friendly city, and I
Yeah.
think we're doing a very good job. We're working very hard. A lot of things that I think our community probably doesn't know how hard we
Yeah.
work behind the scenes,
Yeah.
but we do a lot. We do a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you've done, as you said, a number of interviews with policy workers, professionals, both at home and abroad. What were you seeking to achieve through these interviews?
So the interviews were more like questions that we asked. For example, we asked the children what do they know about what children's rights are? How do they feel about participation? Do they feel that their voice are being heard? Do they know where to go if they have a complaint about something? So we had a lot of different questions, also environmental questions. And then we ask, okay, do we, internal in government, do we have policies that are set up for the different areas? And that's one thing we recognize really quick in our survey, that most of the things that we did score low on or need improvement on is getting things on paper.
Yeah.
Getting documented.
So I want to examine some of this, because there are lots of those, so we'll examine some key ones. But I've got the sense that a lot of this is tied to the UN Charter on the Rights of the Child as
Yes,
well.
it is.
Yeah. It is.
And we were talking yesterday, Kieran, and chatting, and got into that children seem to be understanding a lot more of their own rights, and that they've got rights.
Yeah, and that was also surprisingly coming from the survey. We had a high response from 180 students, so that's really high, and more than half of it, they didn't know about the children's rights. And so I think that is an area that we really should work on, because it's not optional, children's rights. It is, every country, according to the Convention on the Rights of the Child, every government must make an effort to realize the rights of the child. And a lot of times when I talk to parents or adults in the community, they come back, what about my rights? And but what about the duties? No. Every child has the rights, only depending on the way how you teach them. Because if we tell a child, you have the right to play, and we don't explain, but if that's your right, then it's also your friend's right. And your parents and caretakers are responsible for you. So the implementation of the children's rights is in the hands actually of the parents and the caretakers. If they cannot do it, then it's the task of the government. And for instance, one of the examples, very easy to explain to children, if it's your right, if you have the right to education, then we also teach them about the responsibilities. Yeah. Because the word duties does not connect to rights, because it's your right, period. But with your rights comes the responsibilities. So when your parents tell you at night, like, hey, you need to go to bed because tomorrow you have school, that's also your responsibility then to listen to your parents, go to bed and sleep. It's the same with your homework. If you have the right to go to school, then it's also your responsibility to take care of your homework. So that is a different approach on explaining the children's rights to also adults, but also to the children, to learn them, it's not from selfish point of view, but it's indeed a right, and how do you take care of that right so that it's also good for the people around you.
You make it sound so easy.
It should be that easy.
I'm just thinking, listening to here, saying, goodness me, what did they think about that? You go to bed, you got to go to school. Why? Why should I go to bed? That's what they ask you. Because you have to go to school tomorrow. Oh, couldn't it be nice if I had known that I said, you know what, you've got a right, and your right is education, but you have a responsibility to
yes.
And children know, of course, and they of course looking for boundaries wherever they can, and that was indeed 7-8 years ago, and say, oh, it's my right, but if you approach it in a different way, I think we can achieve a lot more in that sense. And Stacia is doing on a lot of areas already very, very great. So look at the ROC, the Parenting Information Center. Youth work is established 2-3 years ago, and there are a lot of organizations, the stakeholders working in the MDO. Everybody in there has a warm heart for the children.
It's instructive, isn't it, that you have begun this process by going to the children to ask their opinions and what they think and what they know. What's the significance of that in your mind?
Well, again, participation.
Yeah.
Children have the right, again, to voice their opinion, but a lot of times we as the adults, we tend to forget or consider that, hey, let me ask my child what they think about certain things. And you'll be amazed that children not only think about playing and McDonald's and having fun, and they also think about important things like the burial ground. We had students that talk about, okay, they made the roads down by the bay, but there's no play area for us down by the bay, for example. Did they consider that? So it's actually, you're involving them and helping them to think not only about play, but they also have a voice in things that the grown-ups do, because in what we do also impacts them in their future. So we should take them along in some of the decision-making processes that we have.
I get the sense that what we're moving towards here is that as we plan, and whether it's development of Lower Town or wherever it is, but as we plan, that we should, at the minimum, consider the children, at best, listen to what they say. I get the sense that's where we're moving towards.
It's one of the outcomes also from the checklist. One of the most important indicator was indeed the children's rights check. We spoke to the Island Council, we spoke to Commissioner Merkman earlier this week, and also to the management team of the social domain, the youth as well. And everybody brought forward, because we brought back the results and we asked them, if you were in charge and you could make your top 5, what is then, what specific indicators are in your top 5? And everybody mentioned the children's rights check. And that is indeed you can ask government indeed with every decision that they make. For instance, an extra question in the BC notas that being written or draft, to think of, what if we decide positive on this BC nota? What will be the effect on children and the youth on Stacia? So then, because I remember when we were, I think before even becoming the candidate, we had a conversation with Anthony Reid, who was still the director at that moment from ENI, and he had this beautiful, indeed, the Bay Road picture behind him, and we explained him about the Child Friendly Cities initiative and if he saw possibilities, you know, and hearing his opinion, and immediately he said, "Oh wow, we forgot to ask the children about their input from the beach road, because then you would have indeed, for instance, a play area or a different way instead of, you know, now the feeling like, okay, we're gonna go quick to the harbor and we're going back and we can park our car, but not the input from the children." So it's very valuable to think of these decisions. What is the impact on the children? And you say, of course, people say, "Oh, it's not needed," but it will affect the whole community in the end.
Yeah.
Because children at one moment will be the adults. You want them to come back to Statia, to bring the island to a further level. So you also need to invest in them, and this is a beautiful way to already start thinking about improvement in that way.
Well, if you've got a question or a comment, don't forget to send us a voice note or a message on 599-318-4815. That's 599-318-4815. Now, talk to us a little bit, if you may, about some of what we found out in the survey. Let's look, for example, at, and you've got a list of indicators. So the first indicator, which is considering the rights of the child. The scores were mostly low here when I looked through it, 1s and 2s. Now, you asked them to rate 1, 2, or 3, 4. So
Yes.
1 being the lowest, 4 being the highest. And got lots of 1s and 2s here. Why is it? What are they saying?
Okay, so like I already started mentioning in the beginning, we did score low on a lot of the indicators because we don't have things documented. We don't have a policy for certain areas that were mentioned in the survey, or we don't have activities going on based on that particular area. So that's why we scored lots of 1s and 2s.
And that's what the children were saying to you
Yeah,
in this case,
yes.
that you need this. We
Yeah.
need to do
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
You need to do this. Now, you also found, and we will go into next steps a little bit later on, should we? So there is the fourth indicator that's about raising awareness on child's rights. Also quite a few lows on this. So what did the survey tell you there?
So like Dirk mentioned, the generation we have today on the island, they don't know much about their rights. So we have done campaigning in the past. So the older children will remember, hey, yes, we did have a campaign about rights of the child, but the campaign stopped after a while. And then the generation we have now, they're like, what is that? You know, so we did score low on that one because we stopped campaigning, we stopped bringing awareness to rights of the child.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that the children had recommendations themselves. Did they suggest certain things that could be done?
They said indeed the youth, the indicator for indeed like raising awareness around the children's rights, they said for us very important to inform the youth on the island what it's about. So that was really in their top 5, one of the points they brought forward. Yeah.
Let's jump to what you term indicator 6, and this one deals with preventing and combating discrimination. And there is also 7, which is about equal opportunities in education. What have you found?
Well, looking at preventing and combating discrimination, the way why we scored low is there is no policy or attention for this matter yet. And the youth themselves mentioned as well, like sometimes they feel indeed discriminated and they don't know where to go, they don't know where to address it. If it happens within the schools, you know, they don't feel heard. And it's also something that came forward from the Island Council because connecting to this, it's preventing, but also what if it happens, where to go? So where can they, for instance, go and file a complaint? They don't know. So it's more or less, and they said also, and not specifically that they experience themselves, but that they see it happen. They see that children being discriminated based on, specifically also the children with disabilities.
Yeah.
That was their concern as well. Like, hey, we need to take care of everybody. So it was very beautiful to hear their concern, and that is more like there is just no policy. Yeah.
And there is, as we said, 7, which deals with equal opportunities in education. Mm-hmm. What did they say?
So on that one, for example, the question that they had was, do you know of any students that doesn't come to school regularly? And they would say, no, they do know of several students that doesn't come to school for whatever reason. But then having that equal opportunity for them also means that it's not always readily available, in the sense that we have some students that kind of fall outside of the boat because of whether they have autism or they have a special need, and then the school as a whole, they try to cater for those needs, but we don't have the resources as much as we would like to on the island to really give them a quality of education that they need.
It must be emphasized that you spoke with both primary and secondary school pupils. From what range in primary?
So from, we had all the 7th and 8th graders at primary school and a couple of the secondary schools.
And you also spoke to the New Challenges
and
Foundation
New Challenges
students.
Foundation students, yes.
A range of that. So you said 180 plus.
Yes, really high.
That's good. Now, you had segments as well, so you divided them into segments and indicators, and I was particularly interested in a segment that dealt with participation, overall participation of children. What were your findings there?
Okay, so participation actually is like what we were just mentioning. How do we allow children to kind of co-decide or be the co-decision makers when it comes to aspects of things that can affect or will affect them as children? A lot of them indeed want their voice to be heard. They ask about, okay, if I have an initiative as a child and I want to, for example, create something, or I have a great idea to be an entrepreneur, where do I go with that? How am I being or can be helped by the government if that's something I want to do? So that was one of the indicators that they thought, hey, or for example, youth councils. We want to have our own youth council. We want to discuss and deliberate about different things that concerns us as children. And most of them, they were like, no, we don't have any youth council, or they would like to participate in things, but they don't know where and how it's being organized for them.
Can I make one remark? Because specifically it's for under 12 years, because we have Eurisha Blake on board. She's doing an awesome job with a youth participation group. Also Kurdi and Granville and Kenya from Youth Work having their own youth group, but it's 12 and older. And that is something, I think there is only one primary school, if I'm correct, and who has a student board council. I don't know how they call it. And and recently I was on Bonaire and spoken to a primary school in Rincon, and they mentioned that they have from even group 2 until 8, they have a class representative. And when, for instance, a minister or the state secretary comes, they are the ones who guiding them around, So it's not only giving them the opportunity to voice, but also being seen and feeling part of the development within the school. So, and that is something we said, okay, 12 plus area is great. Stacey's doing a great job on that part. Indeed, going towards a youth council, and she's preparing, Eurisha is now preparing for elections and see how to move forward. But minus 12, that's an area that can be developed. And the youth themselves as well, but also the Commissioner Merkman said it Monday, he would really love to hear more initiatives from the youth. And the Island Council as well said we need to hear their voice, because remember when we spoke to the youth around the table, and we had 2 colleagues from Holland, Esther and Naomi. They were here last time in the studio. Esther was here with me, I think. And we asked them about the indicators, and we had the ones on the table about healthy lifestyle and stuff. And we thought, okay, well, they're gonna choose, we as adults, you know, they're gonna choose the healthy food. And they were like, no way, we love to eat, we love, you know, when there is a party, we go for the food and the drinks. So, and that already explains that we as adults think.
It's a huge disconnect.
Yeah, and that's it. And that was so great, because indeed, Monica mentioned before, we expect, and we saw it in the survey, children, we want a McDonald's, we want a Starbucks, we want and we want a Coney Island something. Of course, that's children. But the reality, when they were talking about the burial ground close to Fort Amsterdam, I think, if I'm correct, where the weather is affecting the bodies who were buried there, that were the things that they also brought up. So don't we underestimate the knowledge that they have, really, and the creativity that we actually lost in a lot of areas. And it's so.
Many years ago, I wanted to do a live program for youth. This was between 10 and 16, 17, a weekly program. So in my mind, we need to have a program that for youth. My concept was for youth, and you can understand the disconnect already. So I rang someone I knew who had a tremendous amount of experience in broadcasting, who understood, you know, the whole process, and said, you know what, I'd like to do this program for youth. I'd like your thoughts on this. And he came up with some fancy ideas, brilliant, loved it, and a title for the show and all of this, and you know, and then I called together a group of youth of the age group, and they just shredded the things. This name doesn't make sense. You know, we're going to call our program Vibes and Things. We will do it. And they came up with the answers. Go ahead and do it.
But that's it.
So we think we know sometimes what this they want. They understand a lot better than, and we were like this when we were youth as well. You know, that's when we always challenged our parents. Why? All the time. Some countries do have things like youth parliaments. So it's this the sort of thing that we want to consider as well. There are other issues, as you mentioned, welfare and well-being, family and support, leisure, recreation, culture. All of these came up in the questionnaire to the pupils. And what were they saying in this there?
Well, I don't know exactly what we did, because we brought a few of the indicators with us, because it's easy to focus indeed, like, okay, what should we develop? But what I said, a lot of areas go good already. So that is indeed, we just mentioned the 12 plus youth participation. What also, and I'm very, very happy with that, we had one indicator says children on the run. We don't have specifically the refugee children here, but we, in case of a hurricane, and 7 years ago, indeed, or 7 or 8 years already, the children from, you know, a lot of children from St. Martin were evacuated to avoid trafficking, because some children disappeared during that time. We did not know where they were, where they went. And the Court of Guardianship of the Islands, together with the Comar, and I think the police was also involved, and other organizations came up with policies to prevent, in case again, God forbid, but in case it happens again, that we have rules in place and guidelines in place how to deal. So that's very positive, and Stacia was part of the development of that. The youth policy is coming, a positive and coherent youth policy. So that is connecting to a lot of areas, a lot of work, so almost there. Parenting support,
the rock.
A lot of people don't know, but indeed, next to the clinic from Dr. Coutar in town, next to the police station, Monica and Nadjeska Henriquez, the compulsory education officer, have their walk-in office. You can go there, a lot of materials. If you don't know how to deal with certain situations for children, go there. Really go. Youth work is established. And unfortunately, Cody is sick for a while, so I hope she's getting better very soon. But Kenya and Grenville are also part of the youth work section. That's still an area to develop, but so far so good. And recently the law for the children's care, childcare facilities, Best for Kids were signed. That's a huge achievement as well. Every after-school program, every daycare has a pedagogical plan.
Vision,
yes.
upgrading of the staff.
So, and that is what also very beautiful being part of this checklist as well, that we see what already is going good, and that is also, of course, the challenge, what's not going well, of where we have to develop.
Improvement,
yeah, that's really beautiful. And one of the other points as well, children feel safe when they do sports, when they go to games and other activities. That's also very important. Children feel really safe on the island.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very quickly, we're
Yes.
running out of time. What's next?
What's next? Well, we have some of the indicators already via the results analysis that we did, that we're heading to the action plan. So we have a few of them. I don't know if I should call all of them off.
No.
Like mental health, for example, mentorship programs, children with disability, raising awareness for children's rights. Those are some of the indicators that we're going to put in our action plan for the coming years and work on them, that we can improve the quality of the children's rights on the island and work towards nomination, child-friendly city.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm very happy. It's a lot of work. I'm so grateful for having UNICEF as a support, hands-on as well support, so not only just far away but close as well. So getting all my colleagues on board, internal, external, the different stakeholders, all on board to make this happen. So I'm excited.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. We're excited and confident that in about 3 years or so,
about 3 years.
5 years,
That's the goal.
we
That's
can be
the goal.
declared.
We have the time frame indeed for 5, but we said no.
But we can do
We
that
could do
before.
that
Yeah,
before.
3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
We can be
Yes.
proudly
Yes.
child-friendly city and move on from there.
Yes.
And don't forget, because I think the most, and I know you're on that level, so I know that's why you don't mention it, with the youth.
With them.
Because every step, action plan, when we make it with them.
With them.
And otherwise, if we have stuff on paper, we connect with them again, like, what do you think?
Yes.
Are we on the right track? Do we need to change stuff and so forth?
I think it's called practicing what we preach.
Absolutely.
Thank you so very much, Monica and Dirk. Please come back as we move along
Yes,
this journey
sure.
and share information. And thank you everyone for joining us as well today. And before we wrap up, I just want to remind you of a few things. We've got the Dutch Caribbean Agriculture Conference happening next week. Hope you can support that. And here's a reminder, if you're driving, wear your seatbelts, please. The laws are in place, so please don't forget. And what we know is that you're snapping the seat belts and sitting on them. Now, they're to put across your shoulder and to keep you safe. So please wear your seat belts, whether you're the driver or passenger. If you're riding a motorized cycle, wear your helmets as well. That's the law. And if you must take a call, absolutely must take a call, there are a couple of things you can do. Just use the hands-free segment on the device, or just pull to the side, and it doesn't take long to the call and move on. And remember also, you can begin preparing now for the hurricane season. It really begins on the 1st of June. That's not too far from now. So it's not too early to start stacking up on dry goods, water, batteries, and so on. A little at a time. Whenever you go to the supermarket, you don't have to take everything at the same time. Don't wait until there's a storm approaching. Just stack up a little bit on that. Well, that's Shedding Light for today. Next week, as I said, we'll be covering the Dutch Caribbean Agriculture and Livestock Conference. It's taking place right here, but Jess will be back in 2 weeks with Shedding Light. Until then, for our videographer and engineer, Mikey Spanner, and all of us here at GIS Station, have a lovely day. Goodbye.